That was my problem for a while. I didn't even want you to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where the highly sensitive individual comes in because when you walk into a room and somebody is out of tune, you can feel it. It is loud. Are highly sensitive people naturally gifted at healing trauma? My answer is absolutely yes and absolutely not. Absolutely yes, because you already have a nervous system that is tuned to feel when something is in alignment or out of alignment. Mm. But then I also answered absolutely not. So when you think about a kid that is born that has a natural talent for playing the piano, if that kid isn't trained by a really skilled teacher on how to actually play the piano, learning the scales, learning where to put the fingers, and learning how to either read music or get music philosophy, that kid is going to be surpassed quickly by kids maybe with less talent, but with more training. So my answer then is highly sensitive people have the raw material more so than 70% of the population. So 30% of the population is considered highly sensitive. And men and women are equally distributed in that 30% of the population. So they are born with a gift or a talent, a nervous system sensitivity for when it's applied properly, helping others who are finding themselves drowning or dying and with a traumatized nervous system. All right. So, welcome to my channel. I'm Craig, Subtle Energy Mechanics, or welcome back if you have been here before. So, let's imagine that you take a guitar and you drop the guitar on its head. Okay. You drop the guitar on its head, meaning the part up there where all the strings tie at the end of the neck. Okay. So, what happens to the guitar? It gets out of tune. Now, the guitar bef is gonna, when it listens to itself, is gonna feel like, oh my God, something's off. I sound like crap. I can no longer blend with the people. I can no longer blend or merge with the people that I am supposed to, that I used to feel natural around. I'm going to be feel foreign. I'm going to feel isolated because everybody cringes when I come around. This now out of tune guitar can no longer merge with groups. They're really only going to find their place with other contorted outsiders. But they're even going to feel like, yeah, but that's not actual natural, easy, relaxed, safe blending there either. So what has to happen? Obviously, the guitar has to get back into tune, and this is where the issue comes with the some of the issues that I have seen with highly sensitive healers, therapists working with traumatized individuals, especially those with complex PTSD. Complex PTSD, the main issue that's missing as that individual, as that person was growing up, was what's called attunement. So attunement, that's why I'm using the analogy of the guitar, is that we each of us, every single person, needs to be have some kind of thing, interaction with our caregivers that's called attunement. But when you don't have this attunement, it's considered neglect, or you had to grow yourself up. You had to kind of find your way through. But our nervous system doesn't actually thrive in those conditions. You get a twisted or contorted or pathological view of what a healthy relationship is. And your life may never get anywhere close to be um, fulfilling what it is that your potential could be. Okay. So let's dive right into what this attunement thing is. You drop the guitar, it's out of tune, and we all know that you find the tuning keys at the end of the neck, and you use your subtle sensitivity to tune the guitar, first of all, to itself. So all five strings need to be tuned to themselves so that when you strum it, the guitar goes, oh my gosh, I'm home. So that's step one. But the other step is when you take that guitar, who may now feel healthy and like it knows who it is and it has safe boundaries, like it knows what its tone is, and it's like I'm not all of these other I'm not these other instruments. So already there are natural boundaries that start to present themselves. But what do we need to do in order to really thrive with a relational nervous system? Now, a relational nervous system means it's only thriving when you tune the relationship between the body's various parts, like you do with a guitar, tuning its five strings to itself, but also bringing the guitar into proper relationship or attunement with the others. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about when I say relationship or attuning to others in the space. This is in the energetic field that is penetrates us and then is surrounds us. And what you're about to see on this next clip is we can not only do it in person, but we can do it from a distance over Zoom.
Yes,
Yeah. So now,
that it was stuck or disorganized before, and I also was afraid to feel it, to let it move.
uh-huh. So there was some fear keeping it down, of course, because
Yeah.
you wouldn't want to look weird on a table or anything.
And that was my problem for a while. I didn't even want you to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where the highly sensitive individual comes in, because when you walk into a room and somebody is out of tune, you can feel it. It is loud, especially those of you who you feel inside, but something about your nervous system is very exquisitely sensitive to space and the relationships in space. So you might call yourself an empath or highly sensitive individual because that seems to describe your experience of yourself. You walk in and you're really tuned to what's happening. So there's specific mechanics to attuning, and this is what I've seen, what I was trained to do. And prior to that, I've worked as a healer for 30 something years, and I was just kind of stumbled into the world. I led wilderness therapy programs, and I was a sensitive boy and young man, compassionate, easily overwhelmed, and cared a lot, loved a lot, really wanted to help. And so I was there, and I would have these great in-depth conversations and find this amazing connection. Um, and but sometimes would really feel like I played a role in somebody's healing journey. But it wasn't until 15 to 20 years later, after I had a traumatic, life near death experience with a car wreck and had tried a whole bunch of other therapies and came across somebody who really, with in very short amount of time, like less than 10 minutes, no talking required, was able to touch a couple places, which I would then use my analogy that he knew where in my nervous system, the anatomy of my nervous system, just like the anatomy of the guitar, and he went right to the tuning keys, and he was able to so lightly touch these that my whole life changed. I was out of pain. I had range of motion back. My sleep came back. I had clarity of thought. I had inspiration. I didn't feel so isolated. Sure, I had issues that then I had to work through, um, take ownership for some of the life management strategies I had learned as a scared little kid. I had to learn all of that. But now that I felt like I had a glimmer of hope, I could feel who I was coming back to life. I couldn't even explain what this guy did, but it turns out he did something very specific, and it was anatomically appropriate and yogically informed. What does that mean? That he had been trained to know how the body tunes to itself, not only the body here, but he also recognized that the body, just you all highly sensitive people probably recognize what I'm about to say, is your body feels itself, but it feels others, and it feels a lot of what's happening out here in space. So when the body actually tunes to itself and it tunes to space, there's this natural calm that comes over and contentment that comes over you, even when you are in the space and sharing space with somebody who is wildly disrupted or dysregulated, the traumatized individual. So I was so moved by what this guy did for me. I was like, I have to learn this stuff. And so I did. I went and I learned, and now this is what I teach others. I work one-on-one with folks who most of them and most of you are healers yourselves, looking for looking for a way to recreate maybe some of the amazing healings and helpful experiences that you've helped your clients or patients have. And you recognize maybe in your training there has been a lot of the mechanics, the therapy, the medications or herbal approach or exercises, but there's been so all of that I consider kind of a one-hand approach, the outside-in approach. But there's also your highly sensitive nature, which when trained well, actually then has an inside-out approach. So when you have the outside-in approach that is appropriate and anatomically informed, where there's like polyvagal theory and where does the nervous system really process energy and information and move you from sympathetic to parasympathetic so that you're really calm and content and inspired to grow. You're not just numbing out and separating from everything, but you're actually coming home into this deeply grounded, content state. And in that state, from within that state, you feel this energy of life calling you up and forward to grow, and maybe calling you to help others who have this out of tune nervous system, and you can feel it. So, what I was noticing in my own practices when I got the right training, and I was trained by individuals who are amazingly talented. In fact, well, okay, pause there for a second. I'll come back for a second in a second. So trained, but also with what to do with my highly sensitive nature. When I was feeling something, I knew where to address the person, and you can do this over Zoom call because it just uses your focus. Where do you, as a highly sensitive or empathic individual, where can you put your focus to more specifically highlight what you're feeling in here so that you can then feel how it is you are frequency, how your frequency is interacting with their frequency. Because if it's off, it's going to make you cringe. As it starts to regulate together and your two systems start to co-regulate, even from across thousands of miles, you can feel the life coming through you and you can feel it coming through them. And this is the gift of the highly sensitive, the well-trained, highly sensitive or empathic individual who's called to be a healer working with trauma. And what I was going to say a minute ago, I was just hearing, my son sent me a clip of Mel Gibson on the Joe Rogan show, and Mel Gibson was talking about this healer that he found that could do stuff from across space, and could influence energy moving through your body. And I'm thinking, yeah, there are many of us out there that can do that. And the top podcast in the world still has people going, is this real? Can this actually happen? And that's still showing us where we are in our Western thinking. Primary thinking is that we're still so outside in that we don't recognize that inside out mystical intuitive science not only is real, but it's reproducible and it's incredibly powerful. But at this point, if it's reproducible, then you can learn to reproduce the miracles that you've likely already seen with your people or maybe hoping to have for yourself. But because there's a science there, you can do it efficiently. And hopefully you can join me in this movement. I'm not really being called to a big movement, but let's demystify the mystical because it's reproducible. And there's 30% of the population of us, and some percentage of us are actually called to help those with trauma. And we're everywhere, the traumatized. If you learn the science, then you can start producing these miracles. And once you start reproducing these miracles, they're no longer miracles. They're just a conveyor belt of what should be normal recovery of traumatized, often highly sensitive individual coming individuals coming back to life, spontaneously healing from things that the Western medical model has no idea how to address. Okay. And that tells me I have to leave a disclaimer here that I'm not actually talking about anything real. This is all make believe. I'm not a doctor. I'm not licensed to comment on diagnoses or treating things. And that would be this left hand model, diagnosing, treating things, and addressing them from the outside in. What I'm talking about is the intuitive, highly sensitive, internal, energetic, if you will, for lack of a better word, co-regulating, energetically co-regulating, compassionately coming in and finding somebody in their own darkness, learning how to tune their system to yours safely so that they start to experience themselves coming back home. And then leave this other stuff for the doctors or the licensed healers, or if you're a doctor or a nurse, that you can do both. You can do both because this is the missing piece in my experience. This is the missing piece, the missing science. When you go into intuition, it does not mean that there are not rules and there are not structures. When you detune a guitar by dropping it on its head, there's still a rule. You go up to the tuning keys. You don't just start pulling on the strings and stretching the neck, trying to all the weird ways to get the thing back into tune. There's actually science. Just because it's invisible and it involves moving through consciousness and space, there's a science to it. And when you learn the science to it, then you can really feel like you're thriving on the inside as your highly sensitive healer self, because every single day you feel like you're tuning yourself to other people, so you're content and you're reaching out. So this sounds like something that you'd like to see more of in your world. You can find my video called Yawn Yoga, where I show you how to start tuning to yourself, calling in the yawn, connecting to your yawn that you've been like yawning like that, like yawning like that. And there's a way that you can start practicing right now today for free by practicing with your yawn. You can really start to refine your own nervous system's ability to feel in, feel out, and then attune itself. So if you're actually feeling overwhelmed and trying to manage your own energetic system, that's one of my favorite ways to start. And it's a practice that can just continue on into forever. So that's that's all I have to say for today. Thanks you all for hanging out, and see you on the next one.